to Geek with the Bible. This is the place where we help you grow in your love for God, your love for others, and even love for yourself. I am Aaron McCoy. I am the geek bringing you the word today. So we have a major issue, controversy, debate, things that you'll see if you go online. You'll see these conversations going all over the place. I mean, this is something that is not easily dealt with. These are things that have been going on very, very long. Even within the church, you will have these arguments. And this is the question of what has supremacy. Is it the individual or is it the group? And you'll see this. It's very complex. This is not a... If you like simple black and white answers, the Bible is most of the time not the book for you, because it deals with the rich complexities that come with a complicated life, complicated reality. Now, it does have principles. It does have things to help us wade through these complexities. But it's not just a simple cut and dry, this is the answer, this isn't the answer. So we have this thing of what's more important, the group or the individual. And you'll see this a lot. You'll see this in film. You'll see some movies and all great literatures, all these things where you have this overreaching populace, this huge herd mentality, things that suck people in to the group to where they are just zombies. They are just the Walking Dead, they're just part of it and they don't know what's going on. Maybe they have something where like The Giver, where people have lost their feelings. They have lost all sense of what it means to really be alive, what it means to really be a human. And they're just kind of, going with the flow and everything. And so they have embraced the masses. And so we have concerns about this. We have concerns about this, and even biblically we have concerns about this, because there's a lot of things in the Bible that talks about our individuality. It talks about us giving an account for ourselves, that it's not looking at, that there are commands that you go against the flow, that you are responsible for you, not for, just following whatever your neighbor has done, that God will give an account, that you yourself will give an account to God. And so there is a lot of emphasis placed on the individual, but yet you also see within films, and you'll see stories, things about people who are too individualistic, people who are only narrowly, tinily focused on me. Just me. I am the number one. I am the only thing. It's my way or the highway. As long as I'm doing well, everybody else can rot. I am the number one. I am the one who I am most concerned for. And you know what? You'll see that in villains a lot. You'll see that as a villainous character over and over and over again. That we'll see that the hero is the one who actually sacrifices themselves for the greater good. I mean, we see this even within Star Wars, okay? The newer Disney ones, you'll see this conflict between the first two Disney films. We had Rogue One and we had Force Awakens. And, so Force Awakens, and this is something that I don't even think they realized that they were doing this. But it's there. So Force Awakens is a very individualistic story. It's this thing about, Rey, her problem is, she wants to be identified with her family. She's waiting for her group identity instead of going out as the individual that she is and becoming a Jedi. You've got Finn, who rejects his squadron. I mean, yes, we can say, that's an evil squadron, but still the point remains. We are celebrating him on that he is not just following orders, but no, he is taking it upon himself to leave the First Order. And then you got Kylo Ren, the evil Kylo Ren, who his individuality is telling him, don't kill your father, don't kill Han Solo, but he wants to fit into the mold. He wants to fit in to what the rest of the dark side's doing. So he gives up his individuality and kills his father, thus getting deeper and deeper into the evil clutches. But then we have a Rogue One. And Rogue One has a lot more complex morality going on, where you see, there's a guy who gives information to what's his name, Andor, Cassian Andor, I think is his name, and the guy, our hero, shoots this guy who just provided information because, well, I don't want him to. He's going to slow me down. If I get caught with this guy, he's had a bum leg, and it's like we're both going to die. So you kind of got that trolley problem in philosophy, that better for one to die than multiple to die. And, you see things they use like torture, they use this big squid thing that gets into the guy's brain. You have the father who sacrifices his daughter's happiness. So instead of being the father, instead of just saying, no, I have to raise my daughter, no, he sacrifices that. And he works on the Death Star so that he can put in a faulty switch. So that way, the rebels will be able to destroy the Death Star. And we celebrate this. We celebrate that he sacrificed his daughter's happiness. He sacrificed the good life of his daughter for something bigger, for something grander, for the greater good, the greater community. And even what's most pressing is that in the end of the film, all of the heroes die. They all sacrifice their individual lives for a greater purpose. And we applaud. And it sticks with us. This is something that it weighs on you as being something heroic. So both of these sides, and as I said, this is the same film series. It's Star Wars. You might say, no, Disney Star Wars. Disney Star Wars is not my Star Wars. Well, whatever. It's still that there's a place for that. But it's all Star Wars. And yet, even in these two films that were just 1 year apart, you have these two different philosophies going on of what has greater weight. Is it the individual, or is it the group? What has more importance? Even if, let's say, we look at this politically, there's a lot of debate that goes on within this, in which it's so funny because even the parties can't seem to figure out exactly which side they are on as far as the individual or the group. Because whenever I was in high school, I grew up very, very conservative. I'm still kind of lean conservative now, but I'm more middle ground. And I remember during the Bush era, there was often this real feeling of, we need to come together as the country. We need to have this unity. We all need to come together. And those who are on the outside, those who are pushing back, those are the deviant ones. Those are the ones, the protesters, the anti-war protesters. I remember I used to get really upset with anti-war protesters whenever I was in high school. And there's this thought of oh yeah, you've got a freedom to speak, but it's our country that grants you the freedom to speak. So you need to shut up and get behind the troops that are providing you that right. And those were my feelings at the time. But there was certainly this feeling of don't be on the outside. You need to be one of us in the core, part of the main group. And it was more the left side that you could see that were more of the freedom of speech protesters. You think of a lot of the hippies, and you think of Berkeley and different things like that a lot of the pro free speech movements were very much more of the liberal side. And now, just like in a sports team that trades off players, politics seem to have, they like to trade their values, it appears, and to where now it seems like it's more of the conservative side that are very, they are championing the individual, championing the one who is, willing to stand up against the crowd and try to rattle the cage or rattle the system. But it seems to me is that we often, all of us, have some kind of mix of the individual versus the group. But we often clamor about what things. Where do I join the group? Where are the times that I'm supposed to be part of the group? And when are the times that I am supposed to live and let live? When do we allow ourselves to be individuals? And even more than that, you might say, when should I help somebody? When are the times that we do rally around somebody and help them up? And when are the times that we say, hey, you've got to stand on your own? And how do we solve these things? Because that's even what I see a lot of times within a lot of the arguments is not should we help someone who's down on their luck, but how should we help them? Because one of the things I do want to try to use this channel and this voice. I think I want to rally around the cross, the gospel. I am about promoting the Church of Christ, the Church of Jesus. I am not so much concerned with a particular political party or even just this nation. Even I do consider myself a patriot. There's very much that I love about this country. But man, the gospel, that's what I want to rally behind. That's the group that I want to form more than any political party. And so that's why I don't even tend to talk about politics too often here. But this seems like it's part of the it's definitely part of the cultural conversation as far as the individual versus the group. So let's see what Scripture has to say. That's always the place that we want to go here. So we're continuing our talk on Galatians. We have Paul. This is our last chapter, chapter 6. And Paul, he just got on this whole thing talking about, either following the flesh or following the spirit, that we are free from the legalism that comes from Jewish law, but now we are in something a lot more organic, something more, dare I say personal, something of something more alive, that we use the scriptures to help us, to guide us, to help us understand the Spirit, but that God Himself is interacting in our life and is wanting to produce fruit in our lives. But here we go. So we got Galatians 6, verse 1. Paul says, "Brothers, if anyone is caught in any transgression, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness. Keep watch on yourself, lest you too be tempted. Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. For if anyone thinks he is something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. But let each one test his own works, and then his reason's boast will be in himself alone and not in his neighbor. For each will have to bear his own load." So if you say, "Hey, Paul, what has more importance, the group or the individual?" Paul would say, yes. Yes. He like just in this little passage here, he goes back and forth and back and forth. So let's look at this. Let's break it down. He says, if anyone is caught in a transgression, so that's someone, an individual, had a failing. Okay, so that's the individual. He says, you who are spiritual should restore him. So that's the group. Because he's saying you who are mature, you who are a little bit further along, you need to go out of your way and help this brother or sister who is in transgression. Okay, so then we got the group. And so he says, but keep watch on yourself, lest you too be tempted. So now we're back at the individual. And then he says, bear one another's burdens. Oh, so now we're back at the group. And so fulfill the law of Christ. For if anyone thinks he is something, so, this is that individualism. Oh, I am something. I am incredible. Look at me. Look at my wonderfulness. Look how strong I am. Look at my bootstraps that I have put myself up on. Well, if you think that way, guess what? Then when you are nothing, you deceive yourself. But so then now he's saying, no. So it's back to the group. Okay? So don't be that bootstrap guy. Back to the group. But let each one test his own work. Oh, now we're back to the individual. And then he will have reason to boast. His boast will be in himself alone and not in his neighbor. So it's about you, individual. It's not about your neighbor. It's about you. For each one will have to bear his own load, the individual. Back and forth it goes. It's like you're trying to unravel this crazy ball of yarn here to see what the heck is he talking about. Well, let's look through it more thoroughly, okay? And let's see if we can get any clarity specifically of what we're supposed to do. Okay, so is it the individual or is it the group? So let's look at this. So he says, brothers. So he's talking to a group. He's talking to a group of Christians. This isn't just the world, the general neighbors, the general population. He's talking specifically Christians. If anyone is caught in a transgression, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness. So let's look at this for a minute. So he says that you should restore your. So as we've said, that just because you're a Christian, that doesn't mean that suddenly all desires of the flesh have suddenly gone off away, and now you're just completely pure. There's no struggle. No, we're still tempted, and sometimes we still fall. And there's many times we struggle in many different ways, but yet there are some things whenever it's like, look, when you see this going on, you see this is a repeated pattern, you see that this is something that someone's really struggling with. They are in this transgression. You who are spiritual, so it's talking about someone who's mature. So I'll see a lot of times online they talk about this idea of being a cage stage. This happens more in the I think more in the Reformed circles, kind of the Calvinist type people. They call them cage stage Calvinists. So this is the one who they just got into this, and they think, oh, now I've got everything figured out. I know it all. I've got it all done, and I'm gonna tell you what's wrong. It's like that Seinfeld thing. I've got a lot of problems with you people, and you're gonna hear about it. So we get this way sometimes, and this is whenever we're saved by grace. Yes, we're immediately put at a place of equal value with everybody. But can we agree that there are different levels of maturity that we're at? Can we agree that even though God sees us all, if you are in Christ, he sees you as the pure and spotless lamb. He sees you in the same way that he looked at Christ. But there still is levels of maturity, levels of growth that we're not all equally at. This even says whenever it talks about looking for, I believe it's like an elder or a pastor or they have these different things that you should be. And it says you shouldn't be a recent convert. You shouldn't be too young. You need to have some years, some wisdom, some ups and downs, some things that you've learned. Maybe see that you've been humbled a few times. Because it says that if you jump in too quick, that you're going to get boastful. You're going to get prideful and arrogant. And you're not going to have the gentleness and mercy that's required. And so it says that we are to restore. So whenever you find a brother who's in a transgression, it doesn't say go hunt them down. You go make an example of him. You go and you clobber them. No. No. It says you restore them. It says you're to restore them. Sadly, the church has a history of killing its wounded. The survival of the fittest mentality of, oh, you weren't strong enough to keep up. Well, then we'll plow you. Now, I know this isn't true of every church. And sometimes I know that rumors and things I know can exaggerate what actually happened. But man, we really need to take this seriously. That we are to restore in a spirit of gentleness. And I know it feels good, man. It's fun to blast people, you know? It really is. It really is fun to blast people. But it says, no, in the spirit of gentleness, of kindness. Restore. Bring them back. Help them. Don't just say, well, they didn't do it. They had their chance. They had their opportunity. No. Reach out. Or you might say, well, I'm here if they need me. No, it says you who are spiritual, you should restore them. You need to go out and try to help them. That the responsibility. Yes. Were they the ones who sinned? Yes. Are they the ones who are falling away? Yes. But you, if you are mature, sort of that Spider-Man thing, with great power comes great responsibility. In the same way with spiritual maturity. If you're there, it's on you. Send them, bring them with coffee. You see something. You see someone who seems like they're just not quite there. They don't quite get it. They don't quite understand, and invite them out and say, hey, what's going on with this thing? What's going on with that? And try to restore them. Try to bring them back and do it with gentleness. And there are times for, I know I've mentioned this multiple times. I know that it talks about go as an individual, then have two people, and then bring them before the church. But really our hearts have to be on bringing people back in. I've been talking a lot to my brother-in-law who grew up Mormon, the Latter-day Saints, and it's been very, very enlightening hearing some of the stories and some of the stuff. And it's very interesting. It's often very similar to Catholicism in a lot of ways, but there's all these things of like if you've sinned in a certain way, like you can pretty easily get excommunicated. There's a lot of ways to get kicked out. And so there's just sort of this weight of you have to toe the line. You have to get everything right. But that's not the gospel. The gospel says restore them, bring them back in, try to encourage them to get back on the path. But then it says, keep watch on yourself, lest you be tempted too. Now, this can go in a lot of different ways. Sometimes we have this weird thing. I think this happens more with people outside of the church, where we have this thought of, oh, if I show them how much I'm like them, they'll accept me. They'll bring me in, and then I can bring them to Jesus. And like I've heard crazy stuff. I heard somebody said that there was these swingers for Jesus. It's like that they would go to these, wife swapping parties, and they would use that as times to witness and to talk about God. No, that's no. No, no. That's not how we evangelize. That is not the way we do it. Now, I do agree with, you can use context. I believe in meeting people where they're at. I believe that you can, try to identify with things of their culture. Maybe don't demonize people, but don't join in for the love of our Lord, please. Don't do those types of things. Don't think, oh, we're going to, I'm going to go get plastered with my buddies to share Jesus. Now, look, I'm okay with having a beer. That's my own conviction. I'm fine with a drink, but don't go getting plastered with them, because there is a level of drunkenness, I think, that Bible's pretty clear on. Don't join in the sin. Don't join in this of oh, look, we're being what is that word, relevant. Look, we're being relevant, just like the magazine. No, it goes too far. Now, one of the things tied into this scripture, it says to keep watch of yourself, on yourself, like know yourself, know what you struggle with, know what things are going to be a temptation for you. I have a buddy of mine. He was having a bad day. He was having a hard time, and he was, I would say this, caught in transgressions. And he start going back to some of his old lifestyle things. And me and his brother, we were driving around looking for places to try to find him, to try to help him. Found his car in front of a strip club. I know myself. I've thank God I've never been to a strip club, but I know my struggles. I know that's not the place for me. Now the older brother, he was a bit older, been married. He didn't feel it was quite the thing for him. Now those places are like, it was interesting because so his brother, he went in after him. He knew what he could handle. I knew what I wouldn't be able to. And it was even interesting because the bouncer at the front, I talked to him briefly, and he's like, no, man, he says, you don't want to go in there. He's like, I work here. He's like, but I know this is not the kind of place that you want to be in. It's like there's darkness there, there's wickedness there. You don't want it. And so now, thankfully my friend, he was able to just kind of go in, said he had his head down, didn't really see anything, got his brother, brought him out. We talked with him, helped him get back on track, help him get back to where he was. But as I said, he knew what he could handle. Now, some people could probably argue, oh, no, he shouldn't have done that. I mean, we could have all those debates. But I'll tell you this. What I do know is that I shouldn't have been there. That is something that we can have no debate about. That is not a place that if it wasn't for his brother there, now maybe I could have waited outside, waited for him to come out, something like that. I don't know. But I do know that was not a place, even for good reason, was not a place that at that moment that I should go in. So one way that we can follow the scripture says, keep watching yourself lest you too be tempted, is sometimes if you're struggling with the deep questions, because there are, like, as I said, the Bible, I am not going to sugarcoat or try to make things more black and white than they are. Some things are. Some things I think are very black and white in the scriptures, but a lot of things are very gray. And there's often a lot of times where, there's some real questions. There are some real questions, because what I grew up in, they would often kind of mock atheists. They would say, oh, yeah, they think you came from monkeys. You're not a monkey, are you? No, that's dumb. That's stupid. They're stupid people with stupid ideas. I'm, oh, yeah, they are stupid, aren't they? And it was all these straw man arguments. It wasn't even really what they believed. And I foolishly went into some chat rooms. I'm like, oh, I'm going to tell these atheists all what it is. And once I start actually listening to them and actually start reading what they had to say, I was like, oh, that's a stronger argument than I realized. Once I start listening to them, it was way heavier than I thought. Way more complicated than I thought. And it took me a while. Like, I really had to start wrestling deep with my faith, which I'm not going to say is a bad thing. I think it's good to wrestle. I think it's good to challenge what you believe, because I believe once you come through, it comes out all the stronger. But this is why it is calling towards the spiritual sometimes for some of these conversations, because, man, sometimes you can get pulled down with them. You know, sometimes someone who's super depressed and super down, man, sometimes people will just bring you right down with them. So we got to be careful when we're helping other people, because there are some people who are just emotional black holes that no matter how much you pour into them, no matter how much you try to help them, it won't do a thing. They will just take and take and take and take and take from you, and they just, give me more. It doesn't matter, and eventually they turn on you because you can't give them enough. Because they want you to be Jesus. They want you to be God. They want you to have that never-ending love, to never let them down, to never disappoint them. But you can't do all of that. You're just a boy, just a girl. No, what you do is that you get them connected to Jesus. You help point them to the one who can sustain. You go to them. That's the whole thing of restoring them, is that you are helping them get into fellowship with Christ. Now, yes, you show love, you show compassion. It's like, in James, it says, if you've got the money to help somebody, and instead of helping him, you just say, oh, well, I'll just pray for you. God be with you on your way. Because sometimes people really do need help. And this is what it says. So as it continues on, it says, bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. And we've talked about this, the law of Christ, what we are required, what he's beckoning us to, is to love the Lord our God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength, and to love our neighbor as ourselves. I'll tell you what, when I was in LA, man, I learned something, because I was at this outreach center called the Los Angeles Dream Center. Man, I met a lot of homeless people. And I'll tell you what, you meet all kinds of people. Some of them were the stereotype of just the lazy person who, like, I met this one guy, he's just like, oh, if I could just sit and watch TV all day, that's fine. That's enough for me. If I can get food and watch TV, that's fine. I don't need anything else. Like, just lazy. But then there's other people, man, who are like, look, it's like, you don't think I haven't tried to get a job? You don't think I haven't tried this? But listen, people don't want to hire you when you smell like human feces. How do you argue with that? Because this is the thing, I actually like the idea of the corporate ladder. I like the idea of working hard and rising up the scale. I like that idea. I think that's good. But the thing that we have to be honest about is that ladder, it's a lot more slippery towards the bottom. And if you fall enough down those rungs, man, you cannot hang on your own. You have to have someone to help you out the pit. And so we are called to bear one another's burdens. We are. We're required to. Especially the poor and oppressed. This is something Jesus talks about over and over and over again. We cannot look at people with disdain and say, well, their decisions got them there. Yeah, well, where have your decisions gotten you? without the grace of God. If you didn't have the grace of God, where would you be? We all need mercy. We all need a hand. And that's why I love the Dream Center so much. They have a program, it's a discipleship program that helps get people back on their feet. Helps people, helps train them, helps get them to a place to where they can re-enter society. I love that. I love that. I love those types of organizations. We need more things like this. Because we can't just pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. And you might say, "Oh, but look at The Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith. That guy, he worked hard and he got out." Yeah, but you know what? It happened so rarely that they were able to make a movie about the time that it did happen. Okay? That's the extreme exception. That's not the normal everyday occurrence. The normal everyday occurrence is that people need help. And it is our responsibility to help them. It is. It is. It is if you are a Christian, it is your responsibility to find some way that you can help those in need. And there's a lot of different things. Now, you might physically go out and work at some type of soup kitchen type of a thing, literally trying to help people, times of volunteering your time at different shelters, or even just, giving to your church. If you have a church that has outreach programs, my church has a lot of outreach programs for people, coat drives. Our church, they'll go once a week. They go to East St. Louis to help primarily kids and families in need. Things of adoption and foster care. There's so many things that we can do to help people. So many people. It's almost limitless, and it is on us to do something. It is our responsibility to do something. We can argue about what the government's job is to do, if the government should be doing more to help people. We can argue about that. But regardless of what you think of what the government should do, Christ still puts a responsibility at your feet to help. You as an individual have a responsibility to help those in need. Period. But see, here's the thing, though, because this stuff gets complicated. So he talks about this, that we are to bear each other's burdens. It says, "For if any..." Now, so some people, says if they think he is something when he is really... Oh, wait, let me say this again. "For if anyone thinks he is something when he is nothing, he deceives himself." So I think part of this is this thing of saying "Oh, I've made it on my own. I am strong enough on my own. I am this amazing, incredible individual." It's no. No. You're deceiving yourself. You're deceiving yourself, because without Christ, we are nothing. Without God's mercy, we have no leg to stand on, because all of us have made mistakes, have made sins, have gone our own way. All of us have. And then he says, "But let each one test his own work, and then his reason to boast will be in himself alone and not in his neighbor." And then, so this is kind of really interesting, because we can get in this state where we want to be the victim. Now, there are people who are genuine victims, people who literally, they do not have the power to help themselves. These people do exist. There are people who are completely dependent on somebody being able to help them get on their feet. But there are also people who play the victim. There are people who they don't want to put forth any effort on their own. They want someone to come. They want to be rescued. They want to be saved. They want that attention. They want all of oh, poor baby. Oh, look how hard you have it. Oh, look at, that's what they want. There are people who don't want to be healed. They want to be nurtured. And that's a problem. And sometimes we bounce back and forth between these two. Sometimes we don't just stay playing the victim, and then sometimes we're more of the hero. Like sometimes we'll bounce in between the two of them. But I tell you what, that is so destructive. That when you have power to do something and you don't, and you just wait for someone else to do it, there are few things that will eat away at your soul like that. Of you avoiding the responsibility that you have for taking care of your own self. It will eat away at you. Man, there's so many times, and it just like this slow building of resentment of, oh, they should have done this. Oh, if it wasn't for that, I would have been here. If it wasn't for this bad thing, this would have happened. If it wasn't for that and them and them and them and them and them. Man, there's such bitterness that comes, this corrosive, destructive thing that builds on the inside of you. Christ says, don't you dare do that. As Paul says, let each one test his own work, and then his neighbors will be able to boast in himself alone and not in his neighbor. You don't want to boast in your neighbor, because this is one of those weird things. It's so hard because sometimes we do need people to lift us up. And even if you're not like super, you're not homeless or something like that. Look, sometimes life does just get hard. Sometimes we need a friend. Sometimes we need somebody to talk to. Sometimes we need some of these things. And the hard thing is that if we let somebody else help us too much, well, then do we even really get to celebrate that victory? Does it even become your victory, or is it the person who helped you? Is it their victory? And this is where we just keep on going around to this victim mentality. Playing the victim. Like, even whenever the good thing happens to you, there's no real celebration. There's been no strength gained. It's like it's all them. You know, you've earned your participation trophy. You know, it's like cheating off of somebody else's test. Yeah, you got the passing grade, but you know in your heart that you weren't smart enough for it. Or maybe you were smart enough, but you don't know. You don't have the proof and the evidence to say that you had what it takes. It's amazingly destructive. Horribly destructive. And so there is a thing of testing yourself. And it's kind of weird because, there's a lot of times scriptures that say that we only boast in Christ. But I'm more and more embracing these paradoxes of the scriptures. There are a lot of them. A lot of them. And you kind of have to embrace it. That there is a thing of, yeah, without Christ, absolutely, I'd be completely and utterly lost. But you do have a part to play as well. I do believe that. I do think, and so in the same thing, so at this end part, it says, each will have to bear his own load. And so this is so funny because, just earlier, just a bit ago, we were talking about, it says, bear one another's burdens, but each will have to bear his own load. So there are some things in life that are burdens, things that you are not strong enough to carry on your own. And you need to have the humility to ask for help. That's something else. So this is something that I'm going to tell you is extremely empowering, is the ability to ask for help. Sometimes that's what you can do. Sometimes that's your responsibility, is that you need to ask somebody and say, dude, I need your help in this. Tell your friend, man, this thing's kicking my butt. This thing is, I'm so depressed. I'm so angry. I'm so, all these things. It's like, I need somebody to talk to. So that now, like, it's as I said, it's this give and take thing, because you do have a responsibility to check in on somebody, but you also have a responsibility to ask for help. It goes both ways. It's not a one or the other. It's both and. So we need to ask for help, and we need to bear our own load. So if you are taking your load, something that is meant for you to do, and you're pushing that off to other people, as I said, it's going to corrode you. It's going to destroy you. And you also need to know whenever you are taking on somebody's load that's not yours to take. Because there are sometimes whenever we want to help people. Now this is one area that I sin. Sometimes I will take on things for me that's not mine to take. I try to do too much for them, too much for people. I mean, I'm a teacher. There's sometimes whenever I feel like, oh, I've got to do this and this to make sure that they get that grade. Well, guess what? They need to put their effort in. They need to do the work. There's certain things that I can do and try to help them, but ultimately it's their decision. So here's a great example. My cousin, who I love dearly, man, he had a very hard way to go. His mom, first he was abandoned as a child. Then the mom who raised him got sick. Then he went to my aunt's house, who raised him, who it doesn't seem was always the kindest. And then, as soon as he was 18, they put him in a residential area. And, and so he was just stuck at this place. And, he seems like he was pretty functional, but he was just stuck. And sometimes he would come over for a week or two or something like that. And, but eventually me and my wife decided, okay, we should have him come live with us. And so he did. He came and lived, and we were living at a small duplex, and this is whenever the pandemic hit. So it was stuck very. So we had two small children plus I think he was early 20s. But we helped him get on his feet, helped him get a job, taught him how to drive a car, helped him get his license. And so we did. So we helped him with his burdens. But then eventually we moved. We came here to this wonderful place that I love this house. And he's now living at where we were. Well, he's had some ups and downs. And there's been multiple times I'll call him and I'll say, hey, do you want me to help you? Can I help you get a budget set up? And, oh, yeah, maybe sometime. But then, I'd say like, oh, Wednesday I'm going to go and I'm going to help you. And then it's Wednesday. It's like, oh, no, I can't now. And he just kind of kept blowing me off. And sometimes he's kind of gotten into some trouble and he's had some ups and downs with it. And the thing is that that's his load. I'm here to help him. I've offered to help him. Doesn't want it a lot of times. I'm letting him bear his own load. And sometimes things have bit him in the butt. He's lost some jobs. But hopefully he continues. Hopefully he keeps making better decisions. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. But I'm praying he does, so that he can bear his load. So that's what we do. We bear each other's burdens. but we bear our own load. Take your responsibilities seriously. And one of those responsibilities is lifting the burdens of one another. Not just calling on the government to do it. Because even if, here's the thing, even if, let's say, we increased all the social safety nets and we increased all of these different provisions and we increased all these, you're still required to do this. You're still required to help as far as Christ is concerned. He said, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, but give to God what belongs to God. And what belongs to God is us taking care of people who need it and helping people get on their feet. That's on us. So, and you know what the amazing thing is, though? As I said, is that as we do this, is that you will find that there are times when you're the one in need. Because this was us. There were times whenever we were the ones in need. So whenever my daughter was born, so my wife, we had certain things planned out, and then the baby, or my wife had to go on bed rest early, so she couldn't work, and things got really hard. Things got so hard financially. There was once I took back a $1.50 air freshener because I thought we might need that for something else. It got so hard, and I remember having to reach out, having to go to the food bank. And there was a time I had to go to an organization to help us with one of my bills. As I was just working at Walmart. It was me working at Walmart, taking care of my wife and daughter. And it was rough. And we had family members. We had people who helped as well. But I tell you what, whenever the first time I went to those food banks, had groceries, had a van full of groceries that would last us a week or two, I was so humbled and so grateful. And this was past LA, so I had at times been the ones to help others, but then now it was the time that I needed help. And someone was there for me. People were there for me. And I am extremely grateful to God and for everyone who helped. So let's go and be that. Let's go and be the ones to help each other up, and to not be afraid to ask for someone to help us up, and to take the responsibility that is ours to take responsibility for. So thank you very much. This is Aaron McCoy signing off, Geek with a Bible. This is where hopefully I've helped you learn how to love God, love your neighbor, and to even love yourself. So until next time, peace.